Good morning, boys. It's Miss Casey. Happy Thursday. All right, so today we are going to do our little morning message kind of thing, and then we are going to read chapters 20 and 21 out of our chapter book, Ungifted. We're almost done. We'll have 6 chapters left next week. So that's exciting. All right, so today is Thursday. Our calendar sentence is Thursday, July 30th, 2020. The weather today is sunny outside. Today we have a high of 87 degrees and a low of 64 degrees. And I went and took the dog for a walk today, and it was actually pretty nice out. We were in the woods, so it was a little bit cooler, but it might be a good day to get outside, go take a walk. Or just go sit outside on the deck or the porch and just enjoy the birds chirping and all the different animals that are out there. All right, so today our dinosaur fact. This is our last dinosaur fact because next week we are going to talk about space. So our fact is dinosaurs are reptiles that have lived on Earth for about 245 million years. I was like, oh my goodness. That is pretty cool. 245 million years. That's a really long time. So that is our dinosaur fact. Oh, and I forgot to say good morning. Good morning, Jack. Hi, Jack. How are you? And good morning, Luke. Hi, Luke. How are you? I hope you boys are doing good. All right, so let's read chapters 20 and 21. So chapter 20 is called Unbelievable, and it's with Chloe Garfinkel, IQ 159. All right. Hypothesis. Truth is stranger than fiction. Make that way stranger. At the academy, we're taught to think outside the box, but to guess this, you'd have to be so far outside the box that you couldn't find your way back with the GPS. The disaster at the Hardcastle gym, that was Donovan, and by some misunderstanding, growing out of it, he'd been sent to the academy and parachuted into our lives. Abigail had been right, as usual. He didn't belong. First, she'd said it, but since then, every one of us at least thought it. He'd never belonged. There was not a single imaginable reason why Donovan Curtis should ever set foot inside the academy again. Hypothesis. I don't care. I miss him too, Chloe. Oz admitted when I finally cracked in front of him. I think we all do, but there's no way he can ever come back. Why not? I demanded. For starters, because it comes from Dr. Schultz himself, and his word is law in this district. And second, because there are dozens of requirements for admission into the academy, and Donovan meets none of them. Besides, what would he do here? What did he do when he was here? I countered. He brought us to life. He turned Tin Man from a nameless machine into part of the family. We got a spirit from him that we don't have anymore. And next week we're going to sleepwalk into that robotics meet and finish dead last when we could have won it all. I don't even know if I want to go to this school anymore. He was horrified. Chloe, you need the level of academic challenge. That academic challenge landed me in summer school, I snapped. And in case you forgot, Donovan had a solution for that too, and we threw him out. Katie had a choice, Oz argued. She could have stayed with us and finished the course. Why would she? After the way we treated her brother, I don't blame her a bit. I blame us. Hypothesis. Desperate times call for desperate measures. I was so upset that I did something I'd never done before. I cut school that afternoon. Not just a class or two, all of it. I hopped on a crosstown bus and rode east toward the one person who could help, if anybody could. I was going to Hardcastle Middle School to find Donovan. The ride was endless, slow, stopping at every tiny street along the way. I kept checking the time on my phone, but it didn't move the bus any faster. I wasn't sure what the schedule was at Hardcastle, but dismissal had to be coming up pretty soon. To commit my first act of truancy in a spotless school career, only to miss Donovan, would be too much to bear. I got off at the high school and started running up the hill. There he was, Atlas, sans globe, overlooking the boarded-up gym. I took heart. This was definitely the right place, but my first sight of the middle school almost took my breath away. They were already coming out, swarming all over the campus, crowding onto buses. I ran into the midst of the crowd, frantically scanning faces on the off chance I'd find the one I was searching for out of more than 900. They all seemed familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. I'd probably seen many of them at the dance, but that didn't matter. Nobody was familiar enough. I was beginning to get some strange looks. "Is Donovan Curtis around?" I asked one boy. His response was a blank stare. His companion shoved him. "The dude who dissed the basketball team. You know him?" I prompted. "Not really." Hypothesis. Donovan made a bigger impression in just a few weeks at the academy than in nearly 3 years here. I caught a glimmer of how someone could disappear among a student body of more than 300 at each grade level. It could never have happened at my school. You were famous for what you knew, or what you could do, or what you might become, or, in Donovan's case, even for what you didn't know. I tried another kid, a girl this time. "Do you know Donovan Curtis?" She shrugged. "I heard he transferred to the academy." "I think he's back," piped up the boy behind her. "Isn't he the guy who won the toilet award?" "Probably. It sounded like him." "Have you seen him anywhere?" Another shrug. Hypothesis. Non-academy kids are very loose in the shoulders. I'd always envied them their relaxed, casual attitude, something that never came naturally to us in the gifted program. But right now, I felt like I was drowning, and nobody cared enough to throw me a life preserver. By this time, some of the school buses had taken off, and the crowd was thinning out. An ugly truth began weighing me down like a heavy metal. I wasn't going to find him. I'd come all this way for nothing. Worse, I was going to have to get back on that crosstown bus and jounce my way home. I wasn't even really sure what I'd been planning to say to the guy. I just knew for certain that the mere sight of him would have settled me down. Suddenly, a too loud voice behind me announced, "Hey, isn't that the plaid chick?" I wheeled. There they stood, staring at me, Donovan's 2 friends named Daniel. I ran over to them. "I'm so glad to see you guys." "Whoa." One of them held out a hand. "Not too close. Your brainwaves might fry my cell phone." "Guys, is Donovan here?" The taller Daniel sneered down at me. "Look who needs Donovan all of a sudden. You should have thought of that before you threw him out of your smarty pants school." "Woulda, shoulda, coulda," put in the other one. I ignored their baiting and plowed forward. "I totally agree with you. If it was up to me, Donovan would still be at the academy. That's what I came here to talk about." "Has he left yet?" "He wasn't in school today," the taller Daniel said finally. "Schultz took him to meet with the school district's insurance company. You know, he's the guy who busted the gym, right?" "We were eyewitnesses," added the other one. And he went into this ridiculous story about how Donovan had, for no reason at all, whacked the statue on the rump with a tree branch, and all the damage had happened because the globe had disconnected and rolled down the hill. I was just about to say, "How stupid do you think I am?" when it dawned on me that story was totally Donovan. It was exactly why he was so needed at the academy. None of us ever did anything without thinking it out in detail, making an elaborate plan. Donovan acted, whether it was hitting a statue or naming a robot or stealing a motor or finding someone to teach human growth and development because she was human growth and development. For Donovan, it was all as natural as breathing. "Well," I stammered, "can you give me his phone number? I really need to talk to him." Taller Daniel was indignant. "And give you brainiacs another chance to make him feel stupid? No way! He's miserable enough." And then, as if I hadn't sufficiently humiliated myself, I began to sob like a heartbroken child. Part of it was pure frustration with this wild goose chase, the fact that these 2 jerks could easily have put me in touch with Donovan, but they wouldn't. And part of it was this. I'd been so wrapped up in what we'd lost, how we'd suffer, the fact that we'd have to go to summer school. I never even wasted a thought of how Donovan must have felt about all of this. How selfish was I? Hypothesis. We don't deserve Donovan at the academy. "Hey, wait a minute," the other Daniel exclaimed. "What are you doing?" "Go ahead," I sniffled. "Let me have it. Make fun of the academy nerd crybaby. All I wanted to do was let him know how much we miss him and how we've all been like zombies since he left. Next week is the robotics meet and we've been preparing for it all year, and now nobody even wants to go. I didn't come here to make him feel bad. I came to tell him how sorry we are." I fell silent, catching my breath and waiting for them to laugh in my face. This was one more thing to regret for poor Donovan. He had such lousy friends. The shorter Daniel took something out of his pocket and began folding it meticulously. It was a TGI Fridays napkin, crushed for who knows how long in a tiny pocket. He handed it to me, and I blew my nose gratefully. Neither of them spoke. It was the first time I'd ever seen those guys at a loss for a snide remark. Finally, the taller Daniel spoke up. When did you say that robotics meet was? Cheating investigation. This is the interview with Noah Euclid. Miss Bellavacqua, no, you may not film this interview. I've already made enough appearances on your YouTube channel, but we'll have a conversation about that on another day. Noah, we should reach 10,000 hits sometime next week. You know, based on the rate of increase of daily views. It's a simple calculation. Miss Bellavacqua, I know that. I'm a math teacher. Please pay attention, Noah. Would it be possible for someone to take control of a computer that's transmitting over a secure internet connection? Noah, oh sure. You just have to create an application to decrypt the data. It's boring stuff. Miss Bellavacqua, and did you do it to make sure Donovan passed his retest? Noah, I thought of it because we really need him around here, but it wouldn't have done any good because he got kicked out anyway. You know that statue thing? That was Donovan. What a YouTube video that would have made. Miss Bellavacqua, back up. You thought of it? Noah, sure, I was going to do it, but I forgot. Miss Bellavacqua, and I'm supposed to believe that? Noah, I got busy shooting a video, and by the time I remembered, the test was over. Donovan was back in class, and he didn't seem upset, so I assumed he aced it. It's pretty easy, you know. Miss Bellavacqua, I can't believe you're being so casual about something so important. Cheating is a very grave offense, whether you do it for yourself or somebody else. You could get expelled from the academy for that. Noah, really? All right, next chapter. Unschooled. Donovan Curtis. IQ 112. According to Ancestry.com, James Donovan went to Washington to testify as a witness at the Senate hearings into the sinking of the Titanic. That was what I had to do, only it was more like I was saying that I deliberately picked up the iceberg and sliced open the boat with it. According to Schultz, the insurance guys needed to hear the real story straight from the mouth of the person who did it. The executives looked like they were all going to go home and yell at their kids just to keep them from turning out like me. The worst part wasn't the testimony, but the one-on-one time with Schultz in his car. The guy hated me basically because he had made a mistake. Plus, he was such a slow driver that the trip took twice as long as it should have. And trust me, the conversation wasn't flowing. The only upside was, when he dropped me at home, Beatrice climbed into the car and peed on the floor mat. Believe it or not, I was starting to appreciate that silly dog. These days, the Chow Chow was kind of my soulmate around the house. She moped, I moped. She hid in the basement and refused to talk to anybody. Me too. We lay side by side on the furnace room floor, gazing up at the spots where the ductwork disappeared into the ceiling. Her belly was even more swollen than Katie's now. Sometimes you could actually see the skin rippling as the unborn puppies wriggled inside. My mom tried to pretend she wasn't devastated by my new ungifted status, but I could read between the lines no matter what she said. I'm every bit as proud of you as I was the day before we got that letter. See the problem? Think about it. It'll come to you. Katie was already nostalgic. Strange, but true. I miss those geniuses. They're getting restless in Afghanistan. My stomach hasn't been on YouTube for a whole week. My dad reported that the turpentine had worked, and he no longer was the proud parent of an honors student. School was the worst. I couldn't hack it in the gifted program, but the work at Hardcastle was just too easy. Crazy as it seemed, all my fruitless studying at the academy had stuck with me. Now I was getting straight A's, and instead of being happy about it, my good grades served as yet another reminder of the place I'd been kicked out of. It was like I had a foot in the two different worlds, and they were moving apart. I was going to crack up the middle school like a wishbone, and I didn't much care. The Daniels kept trying to cheer me up, but their plans always involved doing something that would get me into trouble for their entertainment. One day, they brought a stink bomb for me to set off in the cafeteria, and they were genuinely amazed when I said no. Believe me, it had nothing to do with the following the rules kind of thing. I just wasn't that guy anymore. I felt the presence of that bent-over Atlas, and I couldn't work up a stink-bombing mood. It was the same with the vampire teeth for the skeleton in the science lab on Tuesday and the latex vomit for the teacher's dining room on Wednesday. So when I got to school on Thursday and saw the Daniels coming at me in the hall, I was wary. What is it this time? Itching powder for the soap dispensers? Nerve gas for ceiling fans? Cyanide for the salsa? Better than that, Nussbaum promised. You need a mental health day off from school. Be serious, you guys, I complained. Trust us, said Sanderson. They wouldn't take no for an answer, I swear. I thought they were kidding because they were always kidding. And besides, where could they possibly want to take me in the middle of a weekday when it would be obvious to everyone that we were ditching? They shoved me out of the double doors at the side entrance. I was just about to fight my way back in when I recognized the car parked on the curb waiting for us. The front seat was pushed all the way back to make room for the burgeoning stomach of the driver. Katie. What's going on? I demanded. Nussbaum grinned. Be quiet and get in the car. Hey, Donnie. Katie greeted me as I got into the passenger seat and the Daniels crawled into the back. Up for a road trip? I was mystified. Where are we going? Dude, it's a very special day. Sanderson reminded me, sitting forward until he was breathing down my neck. What day? Well, let's work it out, Nussbaum pondered. It's not my birthday, and it's not Cinco de Mayo. Christmas? No, that's already passed. It's not the fast of Gedalia or Bastille Day. Cut it out, I snapped. Katie was laughing. Put him out of his misery. Just tell him already. I can't believe you forgot, Sanderson scolded. Your girlfriend is going to be really mad. What girlfriend? You know, plaid Chloe with the big brain. I bristled. She's not my... But the thought of Chloe made me remember. Today was the state robotics meet at the Duchess Auditorium in St. Leo. They were taking me to watch Tin Man. My first thought was, I don't want to go. Yet before the words made it out of my mouth, I realized that I did want to go. Possibly more than anything I'd ever wanted in my life. It would hurt to be sitting in the audience instead of in the pit with the joystick in my hand, but it was better than not being there at all. Tin Man was going into competition against Cold Spring Harbor and the top robots in the whole state. I should be there to cheer him on. I love a good robotics meet, Nussbaum enthused. It's just like the Super Bowl, only nobody cares and it's way more boring. I shook my head. How did you guys even know about this? Don't look at me, Katie put in. I'm just the driver. Your buddies put this whole thing together. Your girlfriend told us, Sanderson supplied. She showed up looking for you, and she was all moaning and groaning and a total downer, pain in the buttocks. In other words, exactly like you've been lately. So we figured the only way to shut the two of you up was really to get you together at a good old-fashioned robotics meet. Thanks, I think. But I didn't just think, I knew. Who would have dreamed that there were real hearts hidden under all that baloney? Baloney. Oh, my goodness. Baloney. Not even the gifted program could have predicted it. St. Leo was 45 miles from Hardcastle, but Katie needed 2 bathroom stops on the way, so it took more than an hour to get there. I was amazed at the size of the Duchess Auditorium, which was a huge rambling building on the edge of town. The team had always said that the robotics meet was a big deal, but I guess I'd never really believed them. Maybe it is the Super Bowl, Nussbaum mused. Inside, grandstands ringed the vast floor. On one side, a checkerboard of pits was laid out in an orderly fashion, providing home bases for each team. I counted 36 of them. On the other side was the course, looking remarkably similar to what we'd laid out in the gym for Tin Man. Even though I wasn't a part of it anymore, I felt a jolt of excitement. My teammates had told me about this, had described it in such detail that I felt like I'd already seen it. Katie, who had trouble standing for long periods of time, settled her awkward bulk into a seat and reserved 3 more for the rest of us. Sanderson leaned back in his chair and tipped the peak of his baseball cap over his face. If anything happens in the next 4 hours, he murmured, wake me up. Are you kidding? Nussbaum crowed. It's like a nerd city down there. One good wedgie could start an epidemic. Can it? I ordered. I had just spotted the academy pit. I saw Luttrell first, lying on his back, working on Tin Man's undercarriage. Tin Man! There were a lot of robots, but I only had eyes for ours. I hadn't built him, and I wouldn't be driving him, but the pride of ownership was electric. Hey, Nussbaum nudged his fellow Daniel. Isn't that the little shrimp who kicked you in the face? Sanderson sat up and followed his pointing finger. He's not so small. We're just high up, that's all. I had to laugh. Save my seat. I'm just going to run down for a minute and say hi to the team. I worked my way through the crowd, which was made mostly of parents and siblings of the contestants, mixed in with an assortment of teachers from the various participating schools. I stepped around a large cardboard sign that said Great Neck South Robotics and jumped down to the floor. As I snaked through the grid of pits, I checked out a few robots. They were nothing special, but, of course, I hadn't seen them in action yet. I didn't know any of the contestants from the other towns, but in a way they were familiar to me. They looked like the Academy kids, the brilliant dweebs like Noah, the psycho overachievers like Abigail, the hands-on engineers like Latrell, and the all-purpose brainiacs like Chloe. There was even the occasional kid who reminded me of me, some average, ungifted slob who happened to get taken along for the ride. Some of the teams were tinkering and fine-tuning, some were greeting old friends and competitors. A few pits had music playing. One group was dancing, doing The Robot. Right, we get it. The school banner read Cold Spring Harbor, but I would have known this team anywhere. Their pit was better equipped and better organized than anybody else's, from the easy access tool rack to the stacked hammocks for relaxing between rounds. Their robot looked like it had just rolled off an assembly line in a high-tech factory. It had none of the homemade, cobbled-together appearance of Tin Man and most of the others. The shape reminded me of my grandma's giant stew pot if you added wheels and mechanical arms, but it was huge. Potzilla, Lord of the Robots. Cold Spring Harbor were the defending champions, and the kids wore their arrogance like a uniform. Come to think of it, they had a real uniform, custom t-shirts that blazoned their achievements, not just at this meet, but at the others around the country. To look at them was to want to ram their robot down their throats. Oh my goodness. But that might have been my team spirit. If my time in Oz's room had hammered one thing into my head, it was that Cold Spring Harbor was the enemy. I passed Potzilla and headed down the narrow aisle for the Academy's pit, the smile already transforming my face. It had only been a week, but I could hardly believe how glad I felt at the prospect of seeing my former teammates again. The smile didn't last. I was close, so close that I was about to call out to Oz when a tall figure in a three-piece suit crossed my line of vision. Schultz. I did the fastest about face in the history of direction changes. I couldn't let him see me. I was supposed to be in school right now. He'd have to let me off the hook for Atlas because it made him look bad too. But if he caught me here, cutting class to attend an event of the gifted program, he'd just yank me out of it. I'd get no mercy. I returned to the seats, heart pounding in my ears. Is it over yet? Sanderson mumbled, half asleep. How are the dorks down there? Katie asked fondly. Do they look nervous? They're fine, I assured her. I wish I could have said the same thing about myself. All right, that is the end of the chapter. So I hope you guys, we'll read the rest of this book next week during our last week of summer school, which is so crazy, when we are doing some activities. You guys are doing some activities at home about space, making some different crafts and stuff like that. So I hope you all have a great weekend and do something fun. Get outside, go swimming. It should be pretty nice out. So again, hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you all on Monday for our last Zoom. All right, boys, have a good weekend. Bye.